on.
Why did you choose urban studies as a major?
Well, I wasn't an urban studies major in undergrad. I came to urban studies later in graduate school. But I studied education, and I became very interested in urban educational inequalities and things that were going on in New York City, like gentrification and public housing, and that led me into studying urban studies in graduate school.
What's the most interesting thing about urban studies?
Well, I'm in the moment right now of what's going on in the news around us with Eric Garner, the lack of indictment that was just announced yesterday, and what happened in Ferguson last week. And I feel like if you're interested in those sorts of things, like inequality and race relations in the United States, the history of urban America, where cities are going in the future, then urban studies is that's what we do in urban studies.
What are some advantages and disadvantages of being I don't know. I should do that.
What are some advantages and or disadvantages of being?
That's not a good question.
Alright, stop.
You want to choose it. So
you're selling it.
Yeah.
Okay.
How are the classes? How are the prerequisites for urban studies? The classes that you would take before you actually go into the major?
Sure. I mean, I can talk a little bit about the class I teach. I don't know. I'd have to look online to tell you the exact requisites for the major. But I know I teach an urban planning and policy class to second-year students, which is a little bit like the city seminar class you take freshman year, but expanded. So we look at different urban policy issues. We look at things like stop and frisk, broken windows theory, education, charter schools, vouchers for schools. We have a lot of debates and look at these kind of controversial policy issues. And then I take my students out into New York City and we investigate the city around them, and they chose a research topic that we research that has to do with both urban planning and urban policy. So we're looking at public spaces in corporate buildings and how accessible they are to young people in New York City, particularly young people of color. And we're writing a research paper about that. We were accepted to a conference. So I just found out yesterday we got funding to go to Miami with the students, and they're going to get to present their work. So I feel like the urban studies, there's a lot of different pieces to urban studies. There's history, there's planning, there's policy, but it's a very hands-on major. And in New York City, I think in general, it really takes advantage of New York, and New York is your classroom.
Are there many job opportunities for people who decide to go into urban studies?
Sure. I mean, I think like anything, you have to kind of have a direction and know eventually what you want to do with it, but there's lots of opportunities. And for someone who wants to go to graduate school in anything like politics, government, law school, journalism, urban planning, architecture, it's a really great background. But also, if you're not planning to go to graduate school and you want to go work for a nonprofit or in a